At my wedding reception, my mother-in-law stood up during speeches. My son could have done so much better. This gold digger trapped him. 200 guests went silent. My husband said nothing. I smiled, grabbed my coat, and walked out. By morning, I'd transferred the house, the cars, and emptied our joint account, all legally mine. My mother-in-law stood up during the speeches at my wedding reception, champagne sloshing in her glass, and said loud enough for 200 people to hear. My son could have done so much better than this gold digger. She trapped him, but we all know the truth. The entire ballroom went silent. The kind of silence where you can hear ice cubes settling in glasses and the distant clatter of kitchen staff freezing mid-motion. I looked at my husband of exactly 4 hours and 17 minutes, sitting beside me at the head table in his custom Tom Ford tuxedo, waited for him to stand up, to defend me, to say literally anything. He stared at his plate like the salmon Wellington might contain the secrets of the universe. That's when I smiled. Not because I was happy, not because I was unbothered, but because I was done. I grabbed my coat from the back of my chair, stood up with every eye in the room locked on me, and walked out of my own wedding reception without saying a single word. I drove home in my wedding dress, a Vera Wang I'd paid for myself because of course I had, and called my lawyer from the car at 11:47 p.m. "Victoria," I said, "do it. File everything tomorrow morning." "You're sure?" Victoria Chen's voice was calm, professional. She'd been expecting this call for 6 months. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. By 6 a.m. the next morning, I'd transferred every penny from our joint account into my personal account. 127, 439.82. I'd been tracking it to the cent. By 7:15 a.m., a locksmith I'd already vetted and pre-scheduled was changing every lock on my house. By 9:30 a.m., divorce papers were filed with the county clerk. My husband showed up at 6:47 p.m., still wearing his wedding suit minus the jacket, looking confused and hungover and vaguely annoyed, like I'd inconvenienced him by leaving my own wedding. "Babe, come on. Mom was just drunk. She didn't mean it. Let's talk about this like adults." I handed him the divorce papers through the 6-inch gap the chain lock allowed. "This is my house. Those are my cars. That was my money. Your mother was right about one thing. I am smart enough to protect myself from a family that's been calling me a gold digger since the day we met." His face went from confused to angry in about 3 seconds. "You can't just kick me out. We're married. I have rights. We were married for approximately 8 hours, and you're not on the title to anything. Check with your lawyer." I closed the door in his face. He pounded on it for 11 minutes. I timed it. Then he left. I'd been planning my exit strategy for 6 months, not because I wanted a divorce. I'd actually loved him once back when I thought love was enough, but because I'd learned the hard way that you protect yourself first when you're dealing with people who see you as the enemy. James Whitmore's family had been calling me a gold digger since our second date 3 years earlier. It started small. His mother, Patricia Whitmore, making comments about how I'd landed well when she found out James worked in finance. Never mind that worked in finance meant he was a middle manager at a regional investment firm making $87,000 a year. Decent money, not yacht money. Then it escalated. His sister Rachel told mutual friends at a baby shower that I'd gotten pregnant on purpose to trap James. I wasn't pregnant, had never been pregnant, had been on birth control since I was 16, but facts didn't matter to Rachel. His uncle, some retired executive who loved to hear himself talk, pulled James aside at Thanksgiving dinner, and I heard him through the kitchen door. "Women like her are dangerous. They see a Whitmore and they see dollar signs. Protect yourself, nephew." The ironic part, the part that would have been funny if it wasn't so insulting, I made more money than James, significantly more. I was a senior software engineer at TechCore Solutions, one of the fastest growing cybersecurity companies in the Pacific Northwest. My salary was $156,000 a year, plus stock options and performance bonuses. I'd made $187,000 the previous year. James made $87,000 and spent most of it on cryptocurrency investments he didn't understand and sports betting he was terrible at. But facts didn't matter to the Whitmores. In their minds, they were old money. Never mind that James's grandfather had made his fortune selling used cars and his father had been a dentist. In their minds, James was a prize, and I was some scheming woman who'd manipulated their golden boy into marriage. At family dinners, and God, there were so many family dinners every Sunday like clockwork, Patricia would joke about prenups. "It's not too late, honey," she'd say to James while looking directly at me. "A smart man protects his assets. You never know when someone might show their true colors." James's father, Richard, would laugh and add, "Better safe than sorry with modern women. They're not like they used to be." And James would sit there looking uncomfortable, maybe clear his throat, maybe mumble something that could have been agreement or disagreement or just general throat clearing, but he never defended me. Not once in 3 years. That silence was what started my planning. 6 months before the wedding, I went to see Victoria Chen, a family law attorney who'd been recommended by a colleague going through her own divorce. Victoria was in her late 40s, sharp-eyed, with a reputation for being absolutely ruthless when she needed to be. "Tell me about your situation," she said, pulling out a legal pad. I told her everything, the comments, the implications, the jokes about prenups, James's silence, and then I told her what I wanted. Protection. Not divorce, just protection in case I ever needed it. Victoria put down her pen and looked at me. What assets do you currently have in your name only? That question changed everything. I started making a list. The house we lived in, a 3-bedroom Craftsman in a neighborhood that was gentrifying fast. I'd bought it 2 years before meeting James with inheritance money from my grandmother. $340,000 purchase price, paid in cash, titled solely in my name. We'd moved in together after dating for 8 months because his lease was up and it seemed natural, but I'd never added him to the deed. He'd never asked. The cars, a 2021 Honda Accord and a 2020 Toyota RAV4, both were wedding gifts from my parents, titled to me specifically. My mother had seen how the Whitmores treated me at family dinners. She'd pulled me aside after the engagement party and said, keep everything in your name, just in case. She'd titled both vehicles to me alone. The joint account we'd opened when we moved in together, I'd been depositing my entire paycheck into it for 2 years. James had been contributing maybe $500 a month while spending the rest of his salary on those crypto investments and sports betting. I did the math with Victoria. I'd put in over $93,000. He'd contributed maybe $14,000 total. My retirement accounts, my stock options, my personal savings, all in my name only. Victoria smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of a lawyer who'd just realized her client held all the cards. You're in a much better position than most people in your situation. Let me tell you how we're going to protect you. I started documenting everything. Every insulting text message from Patricia and Rachel. Every group chat where they called me names, and there were many. Rachel had added me to a family text thread where Patricia regularly sent articles about signs your son is dating a gold digger and how to protect family wealth from predatory women. I screenshot everything, created a folder on my laptop, backed it up to 3 different cloud services. I also started recording family dinners, just audio on my phone, sitting in my purse on the floor beside my chair. Washington is a 2-party consent state for recording, but Victoria had explained that if I was present for the conversation, I could argue I'd consented to recording it. Legal gray area, but potentially useful. The recordings were damning. Patricia calling me that woman when she thought I was in the bathroom. Richard laughing about how I'd probably baby-trapped James eventually. Rachel speculating about whether I'd been married before and was hiding it. James saying nothing. Always nothing. I also started quietly separating our finances, opened a new checking account at a different bank, started diverting portions of my paycheck there. First 20%, then 30%, then 50%. I made up excuses. My company changed direct deposit systems. I was putting more into retirement. I was saving for a surprise for him. He never questioned it. Why would he? He assumed the money would always be there when he needed it. I gathered every receipt, every bank statement, every piece of paper that proved what was mine. The deed to the house, the car titles, my pay stubs, the statements showing exactly how much I'd contributed to the joint account versus how much he'd contributed. Victoria called it building your fortress. I called it preparing for war. The wedding speech was just the final confirmation I needed. The wedding itself had been a nightmare to plan. Patricia had opinions about everything. The flowers were too common. The venue was too casual. My dress was a bit much for a first wedding, dear. That last one especially, since it was my first wedding and she knew it. She'd insisted on inviting 87 people from their side while my family got 30 spots. She'd complained about the menu, the music, the photographer I'd hired. She'd tried to convince James to hire her friend's son as the officiant instead of my college roommate who'd gotten ordained online. At every step, James had said, just let her have this one thing. It makes her happy. What does it matter? It mattered because it was my wedding, but I'd picked my battles. Let her have the flowers. Let her have the extra guests. Let her micromanage the seating chart. I was playing the long game. The reception was at the Riverside Grand Hotel, a beautiful venue with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the water. We'd spent $47,000 on it, split evenly, though evenly meant my parents paid my half and I paid James's half because he'd blown his savings on a cryptocurrency that had promptly tanked. Everything was perfect. The food was excellent. The band was great. People were dancing. My maid of honor had given a beautiful speech about our friendship. James's best man had told some funny stories about college. And then Patricia stood up. She hadn't been on the speech list, hadn't mentioned wanting to say anything, just stood up during a lull, grabbed a microphone and started talking. I just want to say a few words about my son, she said, her voice already slurring from the 3 glasses of champagne I'd watched her down. James is such a special boy, such a catch, so successful, so handsome, so kind. I felt my stomach tighten. Beside me, James shifted uncomfortably. And I know he's going to be so happy, Patricia continued, even though he could have done so much better, even though this gold digger trapped him, but that's okay. We all know the truth. We all see what she is. The ballroom went silent. 200 people, 200 witnesses to my humiliation. I looked at James. His face was red. His jaw was tight. His hands were clenched on the table. Say something, I whispered. He didn't. can't. Patricia was still talking. But we'll love him anyway, even if he made a mistake. Even if I stood up, grabbed my coat from the back of my chair. My hands weren't shaking. My voice didn't waver when I said, loud enough for the front tables to hear, "Thank you all for coming." Then I walked out. Behind me I heard chaos erupting, voices rising, someone, maybe my mother, yelling, but I didn't look back. Just walked through that ballroom, through the lobby, out to the parking lot where my Honda Accord, my car, titled in my name, was waiting. I drove home in my wedding dress and called Victoria from the car. The next 12 hours were a blur of action I'd been preparing for over 6 months. Transfer the money from the joint account, done at 6:04 a.m. from my phone while sitting at my kitchen table, still in my wedding dress. $127,439.82 moved from our joint account to my personal account, all legal. Victoria had confirmed it. Money I'd contributed, money I'd earned, mine. Call the locksmith, done at 6:38 a.m. Aaron Martinez arrived at 7:15 a.m. with his tools and a complete lack of questions about why a woman in a wedding dress wanted her locks changed at 7 in the morning. New deadbolts on both doors, new lock on the garage, $340 cash, no receipt needed. Drive to Victoria's office, done at 9 a.m. She was waiting with divorce papers already prepared. I'd filled out my half of the paperwork 2 weeks earlier, just in case. We filed at 9:47 a.m. at the county courthouse. Washington is a no-fault divorce state, Victoria explained as we walked out. You don't need to prove wrongdoing. You just need to show the marriage is irretrievably broken. I'd say walking out of your own wedding reception because your mother-in-law called you a gold digger in front of 200 people qualifies. How long? I asked. 90 days minimum from filing, but with no kids, no shared property, and you controlling all the assets, this should be quick and clean. What if he fights it? Then we show the judge your documentation, every text message, every recording, every receipt proving you paid for everything. We bury him in evidence that you're not a gold digger. You're the primary breadwinner he was leeching off of. I drove home and changed out of my wedding dress, hung it in the back of my closet. Maybe I'd donate it, maybe I'd burn it. I hadn't decided yet. James showed up at 6:47 p.m. I watched him through the window walking up to my front door. He looked tired, hungover, confused, like he couldn't quite understand why I was making such a big deal out of this. He knocked. I opened the door with the chain lock engaged. "Babe," he said, trying for his charming smile. "Come on, this is ridiculous. Mom was drunk. You know how she gets. It didn't mean anything." "It meant everything," I said. "She apologized this morning. She feels terrible. Dad's pissed at her. Rachel told her she was out of line. Just come back. We'll figure this out." "Figure what out, James? How to pretend your family hasn't been calling me a gold digger for 3 years? How to pretend you didn't sit there and let her humiliate me in front of everyone we know?" I was in shock. What was I supposed to do? Yell at my mother at our wedding? Yes. Defend your wife. Use your voice. Do literally anything except sit there like a coward. His expression shifted from apologetic to angry. "You're overreacting. You're being emotional. Just let me in and we'll talk about this like adults." I slid the divorce papers through the gap, watched his face go from angry to confused to shocked as he read the first page. "What the fuck is this?" "Divorce papers. Filed this morning. You'll need to get your own lawyer." "You can't be serious." "I've never been more serious about anything." "Babe, we just got married yesterday. You can't divorce me for one stupid comment." "I'm not divorcing you for one comment. I'm divorcing you for 3 years of silence while your family treated me like garbage. I'm divorcing you for letting your mother call me a gold digger at our wedding and doing nothing. I'm divorcing you because I finally realized you'll never defend me, and I deserve better than that. This is insane. You're insane." He tried the door handle. The new lock held. "Let me in. This is my house too." "No, it isn't. Check the deed. My name only. I bought this house 2 years before I met you. I've been living here for 2.5 years. I have tenant rights. You have 30 days to collect your belongings. I'll pack everything and put it in the garage. You can pick it up during business hours with 24 hours notice. What about our money? The joint account? You mean my money? The money I contributed? Already moved to my personal account. You want to fight me on it? Get a lawyer and bring your bank statements. We'll see who contributed what." His face went red. "You're a fucking psycho. My mom was right about you. Your mom called me a gold digger in front of 200 people and you said nothing. But I'm the psycho." "Got it." I started to close the door. "Wait, the cars. I need a car. Both cars are titled in my name only. Wedding gifts from my parents. You want a car? Buy one. With what money? You took everything. I took my money. You still have your paycheck. Though maybe you should stop gambling it away on cryptocurrency and sports betting." I closed the door. He pounded on it for 11 minutes. I timed it, screaming about theft and lawyers and how I'd regret this. Then he left. I sat on my couch in my house, surrounded by silence, and felt something I hadn't felt in 3 years. Relief. The Whitmores threatened legal action within 24 hours. Patricia called my phone 16 times. I blocked her. She called from James's phone. I blocked that too. She called from Rachel's phone. I blocked that one as well. Then the text messages started. From numbers I didn't recognize. Family members I'd met once at the engagement party. Friends of Patricia's who'd decided to get involved. "You're a thief. You can't just steal someone's money and kick them out. We'll sue you for everything. Gold digging whore." I forwarded every single message to Victoria. Victoria. This is harassment, she said on the phone, bordering on threatening. I'm going to send them a cease and desist. Will that work? If it doesn't, we'll file for a restraining order. But I'm also going to include something special with the letter. What? Copies of every text message, every recording, every piece of documentation you gathered. I want them to see exactly what we have. I want them to understand that if they push this, we'll push back harder. The cease and desist went out on Wednesday. Victoria included a flash drive with 247 text messages, 7 audio recordings, and a detailed breakdown of financial contributions to the joint account. The harassment stopped immediately. James hired a lawyer, Daniel Morrison, a local attorney who specialized in family law. He was competent, but not aggressive, which told me James probably couldn't afford the aggressive ones. Morrison reached out to Victoria on Friday. They had a phone call I wasn't part of, but Victoria filled me in on afterward. He wanted to negotiate for some of the joint account funds, Victoria said. Claimed James needed money to secure housing. I told him we have receipts proving your contributions versus James's contributions. I told him we have documentation of James's gambling habits. I told him if they want to fight, we're happy to go to court and make everything public. What did he say? He said he'd talk to his client. I think they're starting to understand they have no case. The preliminary hearing was set for 3 weeks later. Just a formality in Washington no-fault divorce proceedings. The judge confirms both parties want the divorce, establishes temporary terms, sets a timeline. I showed up with Victoria. James showed up with Morrison. We sat on opposite sides of a small courtroom while Judge Catherine Reeves, 32 years on the bench according to the plaque on her desk, reviewed our paperwork. Mrs. Whitmore, Judge Reeves said, looking at me over her reading glasses, you're petitioning for divorce after less than 24 hours of marriage. That's unusual. Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Morrison, is your client contesting the divorce? Morrison stood up. Your Honor, my client believes this marriage can be saved. He's requesting the court mandate counseling. Judge Reeves looked at James. Mr. Whitmore, your wife walked out of your wedding reception. She's moved all shared funds. She's changed the locks on her house. Does that seem like a marriage that can be saved? James stood up. He'd worn a suit, looked earnest. Your Honor, my mother said some things she shouldn't have said. She was drunk. She's apologized. My wife is overreacting. If we could just— What exactly did your mother say? Judge Reeves asked. James went red. She made some comments about my wife's motivations for marrying me. Be specific. She called her a gold digger in front of everyone at the reception. And what did you do when your mother said this? Silence. Mr. Whitmore, I asked you a question. What did you do when your mother called your wife a gold digger in front of your wedding guests? I was in shock. I didn't know what to say. You said nothing. I was processing. You said nothing while your mother humiliated your wife at your wedding reception. Is that correct? Your Honor, with respect, Morrison tried to intervene. Sit down, counsel. I'm asking Mr. Whitmore a direct question. James looked at the floor. I didn't defend her. No. Judge Reeves looked at me. Mrs. Whitmore, I'm granting your petition for divorce. The cooling-off period will be waived given the circumstances. Mr. Whitmore, you have 30 days to vacate Mrs. Whitmore's property and collect your belongings. The house, both vehicles, and all separate property remain with Mrs. Whitmore as they were titled to her prior to the marriage. The joint account will be divided based on documented contributions. This marriage lasted less than a day and produced no shared assets. I see no reason to delay. Morrison stood up. Your Honor, my client needs time to secure housing. He has no vehicle, no funds. Your client has a job and a paycheck. He also has family who can provide support. 30 days. Judge Reeves banged her gavel. We're adjourned. James stared at me as we left the courtroom. I didn't look back. The final divorce decree was signed 47 days later. Fastest divorce Victoria had ever seen, she told me. The joint account was divided based on contributions. I got $93,247. James got $14,190. His lawyer had tried to argue for an even split. Victoria had presented 3 years of bank statements showing exactly who contributed what. The judge hadn't even needed to deliberate. James moved back in with Patricia and Richard. I heard through mutual friends, the ones who'd stopped talking to the Whitmores after the wedding speech incident, that he was sleeping in his childhood bedroom, driving his mother's old Buick, and drowning in debt from his gambling habits. Patricia tried to badmouth me to anyone who would listen. Told people I'd stolen from her son. Told people I'd manipulated the court system. Told people I was exactly the gold digger she'd always known I was. Then someone at the wedding, never found out who, leaked Patricia's speech to social media, video and everything. Patricia Whitmore, slurring drunk, calling her new daughter-in-law a gold digger at her own wedding reception. It went viral in our local social circles. 30,000 views in 3 days. The comments were brutal. What kind of monster does this to her son on his wedding day? I'd divorce him too if my MIL did this. The son just sitting there saying nothing is the worst part. Patricia deleted her Facebook account. Rachel made hers private. The Whitmores stopped going to their country club because people were talking. I didn't share the video, didn't comment on it, didn't engage, just let the truth speak for itself. I used the money from my half of the joint account, my money, my contributions, to start my own software consulting business, Chen Security Solutions. Small small client base at first, just 3 companies who'd worked with me at TechCore and trusted my skills enough to follow me. Within 6 months, I had 12 clients. Within a year, I had 23. Revenue in my first year, $340,000, more than I'd made as someone's employee. Turns out people value expertise, especially when that expertise comes without the corporate markup. I sold one of the cars, the RAV4, and used the money to renovate my house. New kitchen, new bathroom, refinished the hardwood floors, made it completely mine. I started dating again after a year, slowly, carefully. I'd learned some lessons about red flags and family dynamics and the importance of someone who'll defend you when it matters. His name was Marcus. He was a physical therapist. He made $68,000 a year. His mother was a retired teacher who met me for coffee and told me, unprompted, "My son is lucky to have found someone like you." That mattered. 2 years after the wedding, I ran into James at a coffee shop. He was with a new girlfriend, young, maybe 24, wearing clothes that looked expensive. He saw me and his face went red. I almost left, almost decided not to engage. But then I thought about the woman he was with, about whether she knew what she was getting into, about whether anyone had warned her. I walked up to their table. "James, Sarah." He looked uncomfortable. "This is Madison. Madison, this is—" "I know who you are," Madison said coldly. "You're the one who abandoned him at your wedding." I looked at James. "Is that what you told her? That I abandoned you? You walked out. After your mother called me a gold digger in front of 200 people and you said nothing." I looked at Madison. "Did he tell you that part? Did he tell you his mother humiliated me at my own wedding and he sat there like a coward?" Madison's expression flickered. "He said his mom was drunk and made some comments. She called me a gold digger, then told 200 people her son could have done better, while he sat there silently. For 3 years his family called me names and he never once defended me." I looked at James. "But I'm sure he's different now. I'm sure he's learned to stand up for the women in his life." I walked away before either of them could respond. The gold digger who wasn't a gold digger. The woman who made more money, bought the house, paid for everything, and still got called a thief when she protected what was hers. Patricia wanted to call me a gold digger? Fine. At least I walked away with my gold. The gold I'd earned, the gold I'd protected, the gold that was mine from the beginning. And James? James lost everything he never actually had. Best decision I ever made was protecting myself before I needed protection. His family called me a gold digger, but I was the only one who left that marriage with gold.